Today we're going to look at the plants and the design of the patio garden. This year it was designed using a xeriscaping theme. The term Xeriscape was actually coined by the folks in the Denver, Colorado area. City officials, professionals, and educators got together and realized that there was a real need to do something to reduce the amount of water that was being used, the great demand on their watering system that was being used during the peak summer months. And so they got together and they put together this educational package called Xeriscape Gardening. The word Xeriscape is actually coined or derived from two root words, xeric meaning dry and scape meaning vista. Unfortunately, with this term, especially the use of the word dry, it has brought about some misconceptions. And one of those misconceptions is that it doesn't require any water at all, that we don't use irrigation in the landscape. And that's not true. As you'll see, some of the principles one of the principles that are used in this educational program is the proper use of irrigation. Another misconception is that it means no landscaping. And we often visualize landscapes of the southwestern parts of the state, or of the United States, that use lots of rocks and gravel and cactus and yucca. And that's not the point or the purpose of the program either. We can use wonderful plants. We just want to choose the right plants for the right place, and plants that are drought tolerant and require little irrigation or little water in our area. And then the third misconception is the use of no lawns. And that's not true either. As you'll see, that's another one of our principles, is incorporating practical turf areas into the landscape. So they put together these, they came together and they came up with 7 sound horticultural principles. And these are not new principles. They've been in practice for many, many years. But because they packaged them into this educational program, it became very popular and has been used throughout the whole country. The first principle is starting with a good plan and design. And that's really true for, whether you're going to design it in a Xeriscape theme or not. But good planning and designing is going to help improve the overall look and aesthetical value and use of your landscape. The second principle is actually taking time to improve the soil conditions. Soil is really the foundation of our plants, and a good soil that's friable and has good drainage but still at the same time holds water well is very important for success of our plant growth, and really is probably the one principle that we need to spend the most time on initially, is getting that soil prepared so that the plants will have a good environment to develop their root systems to become established. Typically in Oklahoma, the best thing you can probably do is just add organic matter. It doesn't matter if you have a clay soil or a sandy soil. Adding organic matter is going to help improve those growing conditions, and the plants can get well established. The next principle is creating practical turf areas. It is very common that we develop our landscape using large expanses of that traditionally managed turf, which requires large amounts of irrigation, manpower, and resources. The idea behind the Xeric principle is to reduce the amount of space that's dedicated to these traditionally maintained turf areas, and use areas or convert them over maybe to areas that require less maintenance and less water, such as ground covers, shrub areas, and things like that you don't have to maintain on a weekly basis. The next principle is using proper landscape plant material, as well as zoning your plants. Basically, what we're looking at is finding plants that are going to tolerate or survive under our hot, drier conditions. They're very drought-tolerant plants, but yet will still perform well for us. We have a few wonderful plants here in this area that are good examples of plants that tolerate the drier, hotter conditions. We have the Russian sage, the Perovskia here, a lamb's ear, we have a little zinnia, some portulac. All of these plants do very well under really dry, hot conditions. And the idea behind zoning these plants together is you take plants that have the same watering requirements and you group them together into the same bed. And it's not necessarily that you wouldn't use other plants that need more water, but that you would group them together based on their watering needs. So you would have areas of low water use, maybe some areas with moderate water use, and maybe even a few areas with high water needs. But the idea is to convert most of, or develop most of the landscape into that lower water use category. Now another principle is irrigation, efficient irrigation. We have a lot of wonderful irrigation systems out there, but there are some that aren't as efficient as others. And so one of the systems or ideas behind the efficient irrigation is using drip types of irrigation systems, low water input, and then also you got to manage your irrigation system. You need to pay attention to your plant's needs. Know how much water is needed in that area. You need to manage the system, make sure it's working properly. You know, too often we have these clocks or timing systems and we just set the clock and we walk away and let the irrigation system do its thing. But plants don't work off of timers, and so you really need to you know, get out in your garden and poke around a little bit and see if it really needs water. If the you know, plants are a good sign, they'll start to wilt, but sometimes you know, we can overwater and the soil becomes too wet. So you need to watch it and manage it. Another principle is using mulches. Mulching in the garden is really important, especially in our hot, drier conditions. A good layer of mulch in the garden can really improve soil conditions. It has many benefits. It helps keep the weeds down, so you have less weeding that you need to do in the garden. It helps moderate soil temperatures as well as the soil moisture, and so you don't have to water as often. And then the last principle is just doing proper maintenance. Pruning at the right time, fertilizing at the right time. We already talked about irrigation. Controlling the insects and the diseases. You know, they'll still be there, so you have to just use good cultural management, and your plants will be much healthier and a lot happier. So remember, it's not zero, it's xeric or xeriscaping, and it incorporates these 7 sound horticultural principles. 1, plan and design. 2, consider improving the soil. 3, create practical turf areas. 4, use appropriate plants and zone the landscape. 5, irrigate efficiently. 6, consider using mulches. And 7, maintain the landscape appropriately.